The world felt like it was holding its breath as Chase stood on the edge of the stage, his heart pounding louder than the crowd's murmurs. At 22, he'd never imagined himself here, about to bare his soul to a sea of strangers at New York City's biggest LGBTQ rights rally. But the weight of Ethan's hand in his, warm and steady, anchored him to this moment. Chase's eyes flicked to the crowd, a kaleidoscope of rainbow flags and hopeful faces. He was no stranger to fear. Growing up in a small Ohio town had taught him to hide who he was. But this was different. This wasn't just about coming out. It was about shouting his truth to the world. And the man who'd pushed him to this stage wasn't Ethan, his boyfriend, but Tom, his stepdad, the last person he'd expected to understand. 2 years ago, Chase had arrived in New York, a college sophomore running from a past he couldn't face. His mother, Laura, had remarried Tom, a gruff contractor with a thick Boston accent and a penchant for sports talk radio. Chase had braced for judgment, expecting Tom to be like the men back home, closed-minded, quick to dismiss. But Tom surprised him. When Chase came out to his mom in a tearful phone call, it was Tom who called back, voice steady, saying, "Kid, your family. That's all that matters." Those words had cracked something open in Chase, a hope he hadn't dared to feel. Now, standing on this stage, Chase felt that hope collide with terror. He glanced at Ethan, whose bright blue eyes sparkled with encouragement. Ethan, a graphic design major with a laugh that could melt glaciers, had been Chase's rock since they met at a campus coffee shop. Their first date, a late-night walk through Central Park, had turned into a 3-hour talk about dreams, fears, and the courage to be themselves. Ethan's hand squeezed his now, a silent promise. "You've got this." The microphone crackled as Chase stepped forward. "I grew up thinking love was something to hide," he began, his voice trembling but clear. "In my hometown, being gay meant being invisible. But today, I'm here to tell you that love, my love, our love, deserves to be seen." The crowd erupted, and Chase's chest swelled. He wasn't just speaking for himself. He was speaking for every kid like him, afraid to exist. Backstage, Tom stood with his arms crossed, a proud smile tugging at his lips. Chase caught his eye, and for a moment, the world shrank to just them, stepdad and stepson, bound by something deeper than blood. Tom had been the one to find this rally, emailing Chase the flyer with a simple note. "You should do this." Chase hadn't known then how much that email would change him. As Chase's speech ended, the crowd roared, and Ethan pulled him into a hug, whispering, "You were incredible." But it was Tom's quiet nod from the sidelines that hit Chase hardest. He'd spent years building walls, convinced no one could truly accept him. Yet here was Tom, a man who'd never known a gay person before Chase, showing up in ways that felt almost too personal, too raw. Later that evening, at a small diner near the park, Chase, Ethan, and Tom sat crammed in a booth, plates of burgers and fries between them. The air was thick with the afterglow of the rally, but Chase felt a new tension. Tom's support had been unwavering, but there was something in his eyes tonight, a flicker of something unsaid. "So," Tom said, leaning back, his voice gruff but warm, "you ever think about what's next, Chase? After all this?" Chase paused, his fry halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you've got a voice now. People listen today. You gonna keep using it?" Ethan grinned, nudging Chase. "He's saying you're a star, babe." Chase laughed, but Tom's question lingered. He'd never seen himself as an activist, just a guy trying to survive. Yet today, he'd felt alive, like his words could shift the world. He glanced at Tom, wondering how this man, who'd once seemed so distant, had become his biggest ally. As they left the diner, the city buzzed around them, alive with possibility. Chase slipped his hand into Ethan's, feeling the warmth of his palm, the steadiness of his presence. But it was Tom's arm around his shoulders, a rare gesture that made Chase's heart ache with gratitude. For the first time, he felt like he belonged, not just to Ethan, but to a family that saw him, all of him. The night air was cool as they walked through the park, the city lights glittering like stars. Chase didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing. He wasn't alone anymore. And that was enough to keep him moving forward. The weeks after the rally felt like a dream Chase couldn't wake from. His speech had gone viral, shared across social media with hashtags like Chase Speaks and Love is Love. Strangers messaged him, thanking him for giving them courage, while friends from college texted nonstop, calling him a hero. But Chase didn't feel heroic. He felt exposed, like the world had peeled back his skin and seen too much. Ethan was his anchor, as always. They'd spend evenings in Ethan's tiny Brooklyn apartment, curled up on a thrift store couch, watching old rom-coms or sketching ideas for Ethan's art projects. Ethan's latest obsession was a series of posters for an LGBTQ youth center, bold designs with slogans like, "Be you, be free." Chase loved watching him work, his brow furrowed, blonde hair falling into his eyes. "You're staring again," Ethan teased one night, catching Chase's gaze. "Can't help it," Chase said, grinning. "You're too pretty." Ethan laughed, tossing a pencil at him. "Flatterer. Now help me pick a font." But even Ethan's warmth couldn't quiet the unease growing in Chase. The attention from the rally was overwhelming, and with it came hate. Online trolls flooded his inbox with slurs, calling him an attention seeker, a sinner, worse. One message, from an anonymous account, read, "You're a disgrace to your family." Chase deleted it, but the words clung to him, echoing the voices from his Ohio childhood. He didn't tell Ethan about the messages. He didn't want to worry him. But Tom noticed. One weekend, when Chase visited his mom and Tom in their Queens apartment, Tom pulled him aside. "You look like you're carrying the world, kid," he said, handing Chase a beer. They sat on the balcony, the city's hum a soft backdrop. "It's nothing," Chase lied, staring at the bottle. "Just a lot." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Bullshit. You're getting hate, aren't you?" Chase froze, then nodded. "How'd you know?" "Seen it before," Tom said, his voice low. "Not with you, but friends, back in Boston. Good guys who didn't deserve the crap they got." He paused, his eyes distant. "You don't have to face it alone, Chase." The words hit harder than Chase expected. He'd always seen Tom as tough, unflappable, but there was a softness in his tone now, a pain Chase hadn't noticed before. "You never talk about Boston," Chase said cautiously. "What was it like?" Tom shrugged, but his jaw tightened. "Rough, sometimes. Lost people I cared about because they couldn't be themselves. Makes me mad, thinking about it." He looked at Chase, his eyes steady. "That's why I pushed you to do that rally. You've got something they didn't, a chance to fight back." Chase's throat tightened. He wanted to ask more, to understand the man who'd become his unexpected champion, but Tom stood, clapping him on the shoulder. "You're tougher than you think, kid. Don't let the bastards win." That night, Chase lay awake in the guest room, Tom's words looping in his mind. He thought of Ethan, of the rally, of the hate mail piling up in his inbox. He wasn't sure he was tough enough for this, but Tom's belief in him felt like a lifeline. For the first time, Chase wondered if he could keep going, not just for himself, but for everyone who'd never had a Tom in their corner. The next morning, Ethan texted him about a new opportunity. A local news channel wanted to interview Chase about his speech. "This is huge," Ethan wrote, adding a string of heart emojis. Chase's stomach churned. Another stage, another chance to be seen and judged. He wanted to say no, to hide. But then he pictured Tom's proud smile, Ethan's encouraging eyes. He typed back, "Okay, I'm in." The interview was scheduled for the following week, and Chase spent every day preparing, scribbling notes, practicing in front of his bathroom mirror. Ethan helped, filming mock interviews on his phone, laughing when Chase stumbled, but always pulling him back with a kiss or a joke. "You're a natural," Ethan said, but Chase wasn't so sure. The day of the interview arrived, and Chase stood in the studio, lights blazing, cameras looming. The host, a sharp-eyed woman named Carla, smiled warmly, but Chase felt like a deer in headlights. As the cameras rolled, she asked about his speech, his life, his hopes for the future. Chase answered as best he could, his voice steadying with each question. But then Carla leaned forward, her tone shifting. "Chase, you've faced backlash. How do you deal with the hate?" The question caught him off guard. He thought of the messages, the slurs, the anonymous venom. He thought of Tom's words, "Don't let the bastards win." "I deal with it," Chase said, his voice firm, "because I know I'm not alone. I have people who believe in me, my boyfriend, my family. They remind me why I'm doing this." The studio was quiet for a moment. Then Carla nodded, her smile genuine. "That's powerful, Chase. Thank you." As he left the studio, Ethan waiting outside with a proud grin, Chase felt lighter. He'd faced the world again and survived. But deep down, he knew the real test was still coming. The hate wasn't going away, and neither was the pressure to keep speaking. He glanced at Ethan, then thought of Tom. Whatever came next, he'd face it with them by his side. The interview aired on a crisp October evening, and Chase's phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. Friends, strangers, even a few professors sent messages of support, but the hate mail doubled, each message sharper than the last. One called him a poster boy for perversion, and Chase's hands shook as he deleted it. He was trying to be strong, but the words cut deeper than he'd admit. Ethan noticed. They were at a rooftop bar in Manhattan, celebrating the interview with cheap cocktails and a view of the glittering skyline. Ethan looked perfect, as always, his gray scarf loose around his neck, his smile bright despite the chilly air. But when Chase's phone lit up with another notification, Ethan gently took it from his hands. "You don't have to read those," he said softly. "They don't know you." Chase forced a smile. "I know. It's just loud." Ethan slid closer, his arm wrapping around Chase's waist. "Then let's drown it out." He kissed Chase's temple, and for a moment, the world felt softer, safer. But the weight lingered. Chase wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was a symbol, and symbols didn't get to rest. Back at his mom and Tom's apartment the next day, Chase found Tom in the garage, tinkering with an old motorcycle. The smell of oil and metal filled the air, grounding Chase in a way he hadn't expected. "You look like hell," Tom said without looking up, wiping grease from his hands. "Thanks," Chase muttered, sitting on a stool. "It's been a week." Tom grunted, setting down a wrench. "Saw the interview. You did good, kid. Real good." Chase's chest warmed, but the praise felt heavy. "Doesn't feel like it. People are pissed, Tom. They hate me for existing." Tom's eyes met his, steady and unyielding. "They're always going to hate something. Doesn't mean they're right." He paused, then added, "You know, I wasn't always okay with this. Took me time to get it. But I saw what it did to people I knew, hiding who they were. Broke him. I won't let that happen to you." Chase blinked, caught off guard. Tom rarely talked about his past, but there it was again, that glimpse of something deeper, something personal. "Who were they?" Chase asked quietly. "The people you knew." Tom hesitated, his jaw tight. "A buddy from high school. Danny. Good guy, funny as hell. He was like you. Never told anyone, but I knew. He got beat up bad one night. Didn't come back to school after. I heard he's okay now, somewhere out west, but I never forgot how we failed him." Tom's voice cracked, just for a second, and Chase felt a pang of connection he hadn't expected. "I'm sorry," Chase said, meaning it. Tom shrugged, but his eyes were soft. "Just don't hide, Chase. You're doing something Danny couldn't. That's enough." The conversation stayed with Chase as he returned to campus. He'd been invited to speak at a university panel on LGBTQ rights, a bigger platform than the rally. The idea terrified him, but Tom's story, Danny's story, pushed him forward. He couldn't hide, not when others had paid a steeper price for silence. The panel was held in a sleek auditorium, packed with students, activists, and a few reporters. Chase sat beside a trans advocate named Mia and a lesbian poet named Aisha, both radiating confidence he envied. When it was his turn to speak, he told Danny's story, not naming him but sharing the weight of it. "I'm here because someone believed in me," he said, thinking of Tom. "And I want to be that for someone else." The room was quiet, then erupted in applause. Mia squeezed his hand, and Aisha whispered, "You're killing it." But as Chase smiled, his eyes scanned the crowd, landing on a familiar face, Tom, in the back row, his expression unreadable but proud. Chase's heart swelled. He hadn't known Tom was coming. After the panel, Tom met him outside, his hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. "Didn't want to miss it," he said gruffly. "You're making waves, kid." Chase laughed, a little shaky. "Trying to. Thanks for being here." Tom nodded, but there was that flicker again, that unspoken weight. Chase wanted to ask, to dig deeper, but Ethan appeared, wrapping an arm around him. "You were amazing," Ethan said, kissing his cheek. Tom smiled, but his eyes lingered on Chase, like he was holding something back. As they walked to the subway, Chase felt the city's pulse around him, vibrant and chaotic. He was starting to understand what Tom meant about fighting back. But the more he spoke, the more he felt the target on his back growing. He glanced at Ethan, then Tom, and wondered how much longer he could carry this weight without breaking. The hate escalated after the panel. Chase's inbox overflowed with threats, some vague, others chillingly specific. One message promised to find him at his next event. He reported it to campus security, but their shrugs did little to ease the knot in his stomach. Ethan begged him to take a break, to step back from the spotlight, but Chase couldn't. Not when he was finally being heard. He threw himself into activism, joining a local LGBTQ youth group and planning a fundraiser with Ethan. They spent late nights designing flyers, Ethan's artistic flair turning Chase's ideas into vibrant reality. One evening, as they worked in Ethan's apartment, Chase paused, watching Ethan sketch. "You're too good to me," he said softly. Ethan looked up, his smile soft. "Because you're worth it." He leaned over, kissing Chase, and for a moment, the world's noise faded. But the fear lingered, a shadow Chase couldn't shake. Tom noticed it too. During a Sunday dinner at the Queen's apartment, Chase's mom chatted about work, oblivious to his tension, but Tom's eyes were sharp. After dinner, he pulled Chase into the living room. "You're not sleeping," Tom said bluntly. "What's going on?" Chase hesitated, then spilled everything. The threats, the fear, the pressure to keep going. Tom listened, his face unreadable. When Chase finished, Tom leaned forward, his voice low. "You don't have to do this alone, Chase. You tell me if it gets bad. I mean it." Chase nodded, but the words felt like a promise he couldn't lean into. Tom was his stepdad, not a superhero. How could he stop the hate? Still, Tom's concern grounded him, a reminder that someone was watching out for him. The fundraiser was a week later, held in a community center decked out with Ethan's posters and rainbow decorations. Chase spoke briefly, his voice steadier than he felt, urging the crowd to support queer youth. The room was packed, the energy electric, but Chase's eyes kept darting to the exits, half expecting one of the threats to materialize. Afterward, as he and Ethan cleaned up, a man approached, tall, broad-shouldered, with a cold stare. "You Chase?" he asked, his voice low. Chase's heart stopped. "Yeah," he said, stepping in front of Ethan instinctively. The man smirked. "Heard your speech. You're brave. Stupid, but brave." He turned and left, but Chase's pulse didn't slow until they were back at Ethan's apartment, doors locked. "You okay?" Ethan asked, his voice soft but urgent. Chase nodded, but he wasn't. The encounter had rattled him, and the threats felt closer now, real. He didn't tell Tom, not wanting to worry him, but the next day, Tom called. "Heard you had a good turnout," he said. "Anything else I should know?" Chase hesitated, then lied. "All good." But Tom's silence on the other end told him he wasn't fooled. The next event was a march in Manhattan, and Chase was slated to lead a chant. The night before, he barely slept, haunted by the man's smirk, the threats, the weight of being seen. Ethan stayed over, holding him until dawn, but even his warmth couldn't quiet Chase's mind. The march was chaos, hundreds of people, signs waving, voices shouting. Chase led the chant, his voice hoarse but strong, Ethan by his side. Tom was there too, somewhere in the crowd, his presence a quiet anchor. But as the march ended, Chase saw him, the man from the fundraiser, watching from across the street. Their eyes met, and Chase's blood ran cold. He didn't tell Ethan or Tom. He couldn't. But that night, alone in his dorm, he broke down, sobbing into his pillow. He wanted to be strong, to keep fighting, but the fear was winning. He thought of Tom's friend Danny, of the kids at the youth group, of Ethan's unwavering love. He couldn't stop now, but he didn't know how to keep going. The next morning, Tom showed up at his dorm, unannounced. "Get your coat," he said. "We're going for a drive." Chase frowned but followed. They drove to a quiet park outside the city, the trees ablaze with autumn color. Tom parked and turned to him. "You're scared," he said, not a question. "And you're not telling me everything." Chase's defenses crumbled. He told Tom about the man, the threats, the sleepless nights. Tom listened, his face hard but his eyes soft. When Chase finished, Tom sighed. "I can't make it go away, kid. But I can be here. And I'm not the only one." Chase looked at him, tears threatening. "Why do you care so much?" Tom's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Chase thought he wouldn't answer. Then Tom said, "Because I didn't help Danny when I could have. I won't make that mistake again." The words hit Chase like a wave, and he realized something. Tom's support wasn't just about him. It was personal, tied to a past Tom couldn't change. For the first time, Chase saw the depth of his stepdad's heart, and it gave him the strength to keep going. The park conversation with Tom became a turning point. Chase didn't feel invincible. but he felt seen, and that was enough to keep him moving. He threw himself into the youth group, mentoring kids who reminded him of his younger self, scared, hiding, desperate for hope. Ethan was there too, designing art for their events, his optimism a light Chase clung to. But the man from the fundraiser haunted him. Chase spotted him again at a youth group meeting, lingering outside the community center. He didn't approach, just watched, his presence a silent threat. Chase told Ethan this time, and Ethan's face hardened. "We need to tell someone," he said. "Campus security, the police, someone." Chase shook his head. "They won't do anything. Not without proof." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't push. Instead, he pulled Chase close, his voice fierce. "I'm not letting anything happen to you." Chase wanted to believe him, but fear was a constant companion now. He started checking locks twice, avoiding dark streets, scanning crowds for that man's face. He didn't tell Tom, not wanting to burden him further, but Tom's intuition was uncanny. At their next dinner, he fixed Chase with a look. "You're jumpy. What's going on?" Chase tried to brush it off, but Tom wasn't having it. "Don't lie to me, kid. I know you." Reluctantly, Chase told him about the man. Tom's face darkened, his hands clenching. "You see him again, you call me. Right away." It wasn't a request. Chase nodded, but the fear didn't fade. The youth group was planning a gala, their biggest event yet, and Chase was set to give the keynote speech. The thought of standing in front of hundreds, exposed, made his stomach churn. But the kids were counting on him, and so were Ethan and Tom. The gala was held in a downtown hotel, the ballroom glowing with fairy lights and Ethan's artwork. Chase wore a tailored suit, his nerves masked by a practiced smile. Ethan, in a sharp blazer, stayed close, his hand brushing Chase's for reassurance. Tom was there too, in a rare suit, looking out of place but proud. Chase's speech was about resilience, about finding family in unexpected places. He spoke of Tom, of Ethan, of the kids who'd taught him courage. The crowd was rapt, but Chase's eyes kept flicking to the back of the room, searching for that man. He didn't see him, but the fear lingered. After the speech, as guests mingled, Chase stepped outside for air. Ethan was inside, helping with cleanup, and Tom was talking to Chase's mom. The night was cool, the city's hum soothing, but Chase's peace shattered when he heard footsteps. He turned, and there he was, the man, closer now, his smirk colder. "You don't stop, do you?" the man said, his voice low. "All this noise you're making. You're asking for trouble." Chase's heart raced, but he squared his shoulders. "I'm not afraid of you." The man laughed, stepping closer. "You should be." Before Chase could respond, a voice cut through the dark. "Back off." It was Tom, his frame filling the doorway, his eyes blazing. The man froze, then retreated, melting into the night. Chase's knees buckled, but Tom caught his arm. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gruff but gentle. Chase nodded, his throat tight. "How'd you know I was out here?" "Saw you slip out," Tom said. "Didn't like the look of it." He paused, then added, "I meant what I said, Chase. You're not alone." They went back inside, where Ethan was waiting, his face pale with worry. He hugged Chase tightly, whispering, "You scared me." Chase held him back, grateful for the warmth, the safety of his arms. Later, as they left the gala, Tom drove them home, the silence heavy but comforting. Chase realized something. The man's threats hadn't stopped him. Tom's presence, Ethan's love, they were stronger than fear. But as he looked at Tom, he saw that flicker again, that unspoken weight. There was more to Tom's story, and Chase needed to know it. The gala marked a shift. Chase reported the man to the police, though they had little to go on. Still, he felt lighter, like naming the threat had taken its power. He kept speaking, kept mentoring, kept loving Ethan. But Tom's story, Danny's story, stayed with him, a puzzle he couldn't solve. One evening, Chase and Tom were alone in the Queen's apartment, his mom at a work event. They sat on the balcony, the city's lights spread out like a promise. Chase took a breath. "Tom, you keep talking about Danny. What happened to him?" "Really?" Tom's hands stilled on his beer, his eyes distant. For a moment, Chase thought he'd shut down. Then Tom spoke, his voice low. "Danny was my best friend. We were kids, inseparable. I knew he was gay before he did, I think. Never said it. But I saw how he looked at guys, how he hid it. One night, some assholes jumped him. I wasn't there. Should have been." Tom's voice broke, and Chase's heart ached. "He survived," Tom continued. but he was never the same. Moved away, cut contact. I blamed myself for years. Still do sometimes. He looked at Chase, his eyes raw. When you came out, it hit me hard. Like a second chance to do right. Chase's throat tightened. He'd always seen Tom as strong, unshakable, but now he saw the guilt, the love, the loss. You didn't fail me, Chase said softly. You're the reason I'm still here. Tom's eyes glistened, and he looked away, clearing his throat. You're a good kid, Chase. Don't ever forget it. That conversation changed everything. Chase understood now why Tom's support felt so personal. It was redemption, a way to heal an old wound. And it gave Chase strength to keep going, to face the hate, the fear, the world. Months later, Chase organized his biggest event yet, a citywide youth summit, a celebration of queer resilience. Ethan designed the visuals, his art a beacon of hope. Tom helped with logistics, hauling chairs, setting up stages, his gruff humor keeping everyone grounded. The summit was a triumph, with hundreds of kids sharing their stories, their dreams. Chase spoke last, his voice steady, his heart full. I used to think I had to hide, he said, looking out at the crowd. But love, real love, doesn't stay quiet. It fights. It builds. It heals. His eyes found Ethan, then Tom, both beaming with pride. I'm here because of the people who fought for me, and I'll keep fighting for you. The crowd roared, and Chase felt alive, whole. Afterward, Ethan pulled him into a kiss, the world fading around them. Tom clapped him on the back, his smile wide. Proud of you, kid, he said, and Chase knew he meant it. The man from the fundraiser never reappeared, but Chase was ready now, bolstered by love, by family. He'd found his voice, not just for himself, but for Danny, for the kids, for everyone who needed to be seen. And as he stood with Ethan and Tom, the city alive around them, he knew this was only the beginning. Love had won, and it would keep winning, one voice at a time.